Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome. As you are coming in today, if you could drop into the chat and let me know how many weeks pregnant are you, or do you have a baby, and where do you live? And that would be a great first start. Just so I know who is here with us today. You can feel a little sense of a community wherever you are. It's always really fun for us to see people coming from all over. I am excited to be here, talking all things pumping and nursing and lactation. Excited to be partnering today with Elvie, and I'm the founder of Boober. Hey, Christina, the 2.5-week-old baby in Brooklyn. Wonderful. Welcome. Who else is out there with us? Today is an opportunity really to answer all of your questions. It's a really, lovely way just to, I'll be talking just generally a little bit, but this is really an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. So I'd love to know who else is out there with us. Hey, 28 weeks in Astoria. Wonderful. I'm going to also just throw up a little quick, just 1 second. Not going to throw up the poll. Actually, that was a weird poll, so I won't throw that up. 27 weeks in Chicago. 28 weeks in Manhattan. Lots of New York-based people where I am. I'm in Brooklyn right now. 29 weeks in Boston. 28 weeks in Manhattan. Welcome. Hey, Stacy, 5-week-old in Philadelphia. So we've got some pregnant people. You know what I just realized? My baby's over there. 1 second, I'm going to get it. 2 weeks. Awesome. 36 weeks in New Jersey. All right. So thank you, 35 weeks in Brooklyn. Curious to learn more about, yes, please tell me your questions and curiosities to learn more about herbal supplements and teas. Sure, 35 weeks. Okay, so in general, this is kind of an all things lactation, pumping. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first. My name is Jada Shapiro. I am the founder of Boober. Boober is a platform where expectant parents and new families can find all of their classes and on-demand care providers, such as birth doulas, postpartum doulas, lactation consultants, mental health therapists. And this week, I think you should see it on our website, as we're adding pelvic floor therapists, sleep professionals, and nutritionists. All of those specialties are available. So if you need it before you see it on our website, you can just reach out to us. It's there. Oh, thank you. Rare Enterprise. I love your name too. I appreciate that. Yes. Boober actually grew out of, I'll tell you all a little bit about myself. Boober grew out of my first company called Birthday Presents, which is based in Brooklyn. And we've been serving the New York City area since 2002. So for about 18 years now, which is wild, have helped over 20,000 parents get ready for birth and postpartum. So it's been quite a journey. We used to teach all of our lactation, newborn care, childbirth ed classes, in person and in our various locations. And then, of course, when the pandemic hit, we became all remote, like everybody. We've moved anybody who knows Birthday Presents, all of those classes moved into the Boober sphere. And Boober started a few years ago when I realized how many of my customers were struggling to get same-day in-person lactation care. It was just one of these things where I was getting so many texts and phone calls, people coming to the company and saying, like, I looked at your list of 7 lactation consultants and I called everybody and I can't get help right now. And when you need help right now, you need help right now. It's one of those things where lots of you will not need any help. You'll be fine. Lots and lots. I just want to say this. Lots of babies, this is a larger baby. Lots of babies just latch right on when they come out. And, in that regard, I just want you to know that is very normal. Many babies latch right on. Some people will really struggle, and those who are struggling need help very quickly. So that is why I created Boober. It started informally of me giving out my cell phone on postcards and having people just, I said, text this number when you have an issue, and we'll match you up right away, because I knew all of lactation consultants in the city. And so I was doing that informally for a while. And then Boober really was born. So virtually we're available everywhere. In person, also available in the New York City area and surroundings and some other locations. So I'll give you my different kind of ways to reach us. So I'm happy, I might just kind of, let me read through what some people have put in as questions. And I'm just going to kind of start generally, because we do have people who are pregnant, a lot of people who are pregnant, and some people with babies. And those of you who have babies, I want you to, you're going to have very specific questions, so feel free to ask them. I'll just kind of give a general overview about the big kind of top things you want to think about. And then if you want to come to my kind of lactation 101 class, we do a talk on that goes deep into that. I just want to really be a great resource for you. So first things are, if you can, really ask your care provider right now. Those of you who are pregnant, talk to your midwife or doctor right now and say, if you do want to nurse your baby, ask them, can I have skin to skin contact? Can we delay all newborn procedures? That's one thing that can make first nursing a lot easier, because we know that babies have the ability to actually, if we lay back, to crawl and latch on in an optimal way. And so we call that the breast crawl. And so it's important to note that the American Academy of Pediatrics actually recommends delaying all the newborn procedures and keeping skin to skin contact in order to help with the initiation of lactation. So that's one thing I could tell you as a tip to do now. All right. So I'm going to kind of just start with your questions, and then I'll give some more tips. And this forum today, we wanted to really try this as a real Q&A forum for you all, and then, give you more information. So let me see what I've got here. You can drop it in the chat, or you can also, the Q&A is really helpful down at the bottom, because that lets me kind of keep track of all of the questions that will come in. So somebody writes that they're curious to learn more about herbal supplements and teas. So you mentioned Legendary and Oat Mama. So I'm going to kind of take a step back and let's just talk a little bit about herbal supplements in general and milk production. And Meryl, can you tell me, are you pregnant, or do you have a baby already? You're pregnant. I'm looking back. Okay. So the first thing that's really, really important in terms of milk production is things I want you to remember. More milk out means more milk made. Okay. That's number one. So every time my baby suckles, or if I'm a pumping, person, or if I'm, I've got my pump in there, every time milk comes out of me, I make more milk. An empty breast makes more milk, and a full breast makes less milk. And that's the first important thing to understand, is that if we don't remove our milk frequently enough, then we come into a situation where we're most likely not going to be making as much milk or enough milk as we'd like to. So in the very beginning, for those of you who are pregnant and want to understand the early days of lactation, or of breastfeeding or body feeding, to use the inclusive term, it's all about milk building. It's all about letting your baby latch on as often as they want to, which on average is every 8 to 15 times per day. And on average, every 60 to 90 minutes in those first few days. It could be every 1 to 1.5 hours. Now, if we don't know this, our tendency as new parents is to go, oh my goodness, my baby can't possibly be hungry again. I just fed them 48 minutes ago or an hour and a half ago. How could you be hungry again? So it's really important to know how milk building works. When the baby suckles at your nipple or at the breast, and they give that nipple stimulation, right? We release all the hormones. That signal goes up to my brain, and my pituitary gland makes the hormones of milk production, the prolactin and the oxytocin, and prolactin makes the milk and oxytocin moves the milk. And if you come, for those of you who are pregnant, if you come to our childbirth classes, we go much more into the hormones of childbirth. Oxytocin is one that causes the contractions, right? Of course, but it's also the hormone that produces bonding and love and interconnectedness with our baby, and it moves the milk. So it's this really amazing hormone, right? So every time we get stimulated on the breast or chest and that nipple is getting stimulated, we're making more milk. So herbal supplements and teas and all of the kind of products around milk making should not be your first line of defense at all. Most people will make a completely sufficient and appropriate supply if their baby is latching frequently, if we don't restrict access to the breast or chest, so we let the baby feed whenever they want to, whenever they show the signs, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and if the baby is nursing properly, right? So some babies may have an anomaly or something going on with their tongue or jaw structure or something that's happening where they're not able to, here's my boob, they're not able to sufficiently pull or extract the milk when they're not latched on properly. So if we have an improper latch, that can affect milk supply. We do a whole full class on milk supply where I do presentations and everything. And this one, I'm just going to do more talking. But, you know, I would love for, I'll drop some of those in the chat for those of you interested in the building milk supply. So an ideal latch helps build supply. And if we have an ideal latch that's not painful, and we have frequent feeding whenever the baby shows the signs, most of us will make the right amount of milk for the baby. Some of us will be overproducers. Some of us will be underproducers. If we're an underproducer and we've worked, you know, we've tried to figure out why. So if my latch is not proper, I'm going to highly recommend that you reach out to Boober and get a lactation consultant, or if there's somebody, you know, that you know as well, find a lactation consultant who can connect and help you figure out why. And if the baby's not latching properly, they can help adjust the latch. And then once you get a good latch, you start to see more milk production. If you're doing everything right, good latch, it's not hurting you and you're feeding, you don't have cracked bleeding nipples and all the signs of a poor latch, and the baby's feeding well, and the baby's peeing and pooping well, which is another sign that the baby's getting enough. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then you could try some supplement. If you're like just underproducing a little, or you're trying to make a little extra, there are a couple, you know, great products or different kind of supplements out there. Like I'm going to share with you guys our products we love page, and I'll actually pull up one of the products that can be helpful. Let me just see if I can get it for you guys. So for instance, Majka, which you might have heard of, could be one product that people really like. And think about it first from a health standpoint, right? If you are going to take any supplemental foods or teas, there's teas that have ingredients like fenugreek, which you want to make sure you don't have a thyroid issue, for instance, right? So you always want to check in with your doctor or your midwife if you're going to be taking a supplement. Oats, like there's certain lactogenic foods. So like a Majka or all of these other companies, you'll see if you go on our products we love page, you know, you'll see that the companies use different ingredients that are considered galactagogues. Oats are known to be galactagogues, right? You'll read that a lot. So oatmeal, like I know one person who tells a story always about when she would eat oats, she just really saw crazy milk production to the point where she actually couldn't eat oatmeal because it really did increase her milk production. I rarely see that. So that was really interesting to me, this one person who had this experience. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you're not making enough milk, right? And you're curious and you're like, oh, I want to try like mother's milk tea. I'll look at Legendary and Oat Mama. I actually don't know either of them particularly well, but Oat Mama obviously has oats. We know that things like brewer's yeast also really help. You'll see herbs like moringa. You'll see many different things, but some of them do have contraindications. So you don't want to just kind of like take herbs, right? You want to check in. And that's where a lactation consultant, again, if you're feeling compelled to take one of these products, I would say, why? Let's make sure that you got a good latch, right? First, that's important. The next thing before I would go actually into foods, I would then go, okay, am I nursing frequently enough? If I'm nursing 8 to 15 times a day, I'm nursing every 1 to 3 hours on average, and it's still I'm not making enough milk. My pediatrician has told me the baby's not gaining enough weight or the baby's not peeing and pooping enough. That's where pumping would potentially come in. So, you know, different ways to pump, you might use, you know, on one level, of course, there's hands. For minimal pumping that can be useful. There are some people who use hand expression, right? Then there's hands-on pumping. So you're going to, you know, if you were to use a breast pump, so for instance, like the LV breast pump, which you would put into your bra, right? And get it in there. And actually, you can't even, I'm not wearing the right bra for this, but, you know, you could use an LV pump, for instance, or whatever, you know, breast pump you have. You could use a pump to increase your supply. LV also has, I don't know if you've seen the new LV curve, which goes inside your bra, and you just kind of press it like this once it's in there. So it kind of lives, and it's like a hands-free manual pump. That's another option. Now you could have this on the other side while you're nursing, and on this side, you're kind of doing a little bit of that every now and then to increase your supply. Pumping is meant to either replace a feed, or it's meant to add on, right? So I would nurse. If my baby is not nursing sufficiently, then I'm going to add on after a session where I would pump for a few minutes, depending what I need to do, which is why I'd highly recommend, if you're feeling like you're struggling with low milk supply, that you would reach out to a lactation consultant to help you figure out a pumping plan. How often do you have to pump? How frequently? How long should you pump for? And all of those questions. And then I would go to the herbs and the teas. Now the teas have also good ingredients in general for new lactating parents. So like they're high, you know, high in iron. Sorry, not high in iron. They're high in various minerals that can be useful. Some do have iron, actually, depending. So, you know, thinking about that. All right, let me see what other questions came in. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear more about what types of pumps you recommend and what you can do to increase your milk production. So hopefully I just kind of did some of that. So the big things for increasing milk production are making sure that you have a good latch first and foremost. If you have pain, cracked, bleeding nipples, you probably don't have a good latch. So nursing should only be painful in the first couple of weeks for the first 30 seconds or so. Most people, when they have an ideal latch, don't have pain at all. Does that sound like, has anybody heard of that you cannot have pain when you nurse? Do any of you have that? Have you heard from friends ever that they may have not painful nursing? Or I should ask in the other way, who here has heard that nursing can be painful, right? So you'll hear about that much more often, but pain is common, but not normal. And that's something I really hope you'll take from today. Painful nursing means that the latch is probably shallow. So when the baby's latched on, they should not be on the nipple. We don't call it nipple feeding, we call it breastfeeding. And in breastfeeding, you'll see, or chest feeding or body feeding, you'll hear different terms, but the mouth is fully not engaged in this nipple. The nipple is going back all the way to the soft palate. So if you take your tongue, kind of roll it back to the back of your mouth, there's like this arcing cavernous area. That's where the nipple should be going, into negative space. So if you have pain while you're nursing, we're probably not going to make enough. So in order to increase your milk production, you're going to want to latch frequently whenever your baby shows the signs of hunger. Let's do the signs of hunger, right? Lip smacking, tongue out, mouth motion, head going side to side, just waking up. They're going to be hungry soon after. They start to get balled fists. They're strong in their arms. They're ready to eat. But really, when they've just woken up is the best time. Just when they start to stir, they're probably hungry. And that's the easiest time to feed them. And the hardest time is if we wait for crying, which is the last sign of hunger. All right. So in order to build that milk supply and pump, what types of pumps I recommend. And Lavina, I guess I would ask you, have you checked what your insurance provides? So a lot of people, you know, almost all people have a breast pump that is available through insurance, which is something you should definitely look at and consider. And then depending on your needs, right? For instance, like the LV pump would be a pump that's hands-free and wireless and is great for people who need to be a bit more mobile, who are working, who just like the idea of not being wired, right? So that can be useful if you are, you know, you can let me know which pumps you looked at. A lot of people will also, for their breast pump from insurance, you know, Spectra S2 would be a really common choice. The hand pumps, right? Like you could use, a hand pump is great for people, like this is manual, the curve, for people who don't need to pump a whole lot. So if you tell me, Lavina, more, or anybody here, like what you think your pumping needs are, it all depends. Like, are you going back to work away from your baby? Do you just want to pump a little bit so that you can feed a bottle and be able to go out on a date someday when the world is like that? All of that. All right. So Christina, my baby is 2.5 weeks old. Congrats. And he will root around for the breast and he'll be right on top of my nipple. And he acts like he can't find it and gets increasingly agitated. Is there a way to skip over his rooting and agitation? So, Christina, my question, and I'll go back to you, Lavina, in just one second. I just saw that you answered me down here. So I'm going to go back to you and I will answer your question in a sec. Has the baby always been doing that, Christina? Like, or is this new where he's rooting? So which, you know, saying baby's rooting right at the nipple, gets really agitated, acts like he can't find it, right? So I'm wondering how hungry he is. If he's super hungry, they're more likely to do that. They can get very frustrated. One thing you can do is squeeze out some milk with your hands and see if you can squirt it right into his mouth, onto his lips, so that he has that taste and, you know, smell and knows like, oh, milk is coming, right? That's one thing that I would say. Yes, this just started happening, you're saying? Okay. So it could be 2.5 to 3 weeks. Sometimes they have a little bit of a growth spurt. So I would just try at the earliest sign, latching on. I would definitely squeeze something out, right? Are you doing any bottles, Christina? Also, that would be my other question. All right. No bottles yet. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to suggest. Getting the baby on a little bit earlier, if you can, like well before the full-blown signs of hunger. Squeezing some out, possibly trying a different position. Have you tried anything different? Like sometimes just bringing the baby maybe into the football hold, do something a little bit different can make a difference for their angle, for what they're feeling. It's possible that if they haven't latched on yet, and this is what's a little bit hard about, of course, answering specific questions without being able to really go back and forth with you. But do they latch on and then get off? Because if that's what's happening, I would really compress my breast and try to get some milk in there. Really go for that. The other question is, are you seeing any decrease in the diapering? He does get on and off. So really kind of getting in there. And are you seeing any like not enough diapers? You know, is it possible that milk supply has gone? No, tons of diapers. Okay, that's good. And it's only at a certain time of day, or is it all the time? They go through little phases, mostly in the middle of the night. Okay. So, you know, it's worth trying just something a little different. You know, it's just in terms of positioning, possibly. If it's really the middle of the night is the milk building time. So they need to feed more frequently sometimes when they're still young and your baby's quite young. So there's usually a lot of overnight feeding. And then, you know, we're building our milk supply again for the next day. So, you know, I would also question, I'd wonder if he's having any gas. Are you noticing anything like that? Like, does he actually need to come up for a little bit more of a burp? Okay. Well, keep watching it. See if he needs to, you know, maybe be burped a little bit more, especially in the feeds before going, you know, like the last feed. One of the ways to burp for everybody that can be really nice is to put your baby kind of like this, and you hold them where you put the chin into the hand and you just rub their really low back. We actually have a video of this. I don't know if you guys yet follow, if you have your phone by you, if you want to grab out Boober, we do on IG, on Instagram, we do a lot of teaching there. And if you scroll down a little bit, there's a great video of this early burping technique. How do you know when a baby needs to burp? And then I'll go back up to some of the questions, but the way you're welcome, Christina. How do you know when a baby needs to burp? So if they're brand new, I would always pick them up after feeding them and give them that little time. Just being upright will sometimes get the gas bubbles up, right? Some little taps maybe. Or like I said, you could sit them in your lap and kind of go like this, or tap them depending on what works best. Not all breastfed or chest-fed babies need to burp. You get a perfect vacuum suction seal. They don't swallow a lot of air. And you can realize if like one time you forget to burp and then they don't fuss and they're fine, you can start kind of holding off on the burping. If you are using bottles at all, babies definitely need to burp. They swallow a lot more air. If you have a baby where you hear slurping, sucking, clicking a lot, then they're probably swallowing a lot of air too. Babies that are tongue-tied, that have a bit of the problem where the tongue doesn't extend all the way out, we can talk about that a little bit later, that can cause a lot of gas. So really gassy babies may be nursing, but they're pulling in lots of air too. And so you want to do a lot of burping, like keeping them upright for 15 minutes, even sometimes, if that's going to allow them to get the gas out upward, right? If we can get the gas out of this way rather than out of their booty, because that takes longer to travel through and creates a fussy baby. All right, let me scroll back up and see other questions. So since milk, Nicole writes, since milk may not come in for a few days postpartum, is there a formula you recommend using while waiting for breast milk to come through? Thank you so much for that question. So this is a really interesting point. We don't have full flowing breast milk until about day 3, but you do have breast milk right from the start. And it does not look like breast milk, but it is breast milk and it is all your baby needs. It is called Colostrum. It is the liquid, we call it liquid gold. And it is in such teeny tiny amounts, getting out a little prop, that the baby only takes 1 to 2 tablespoons in the first 24 hours. That's all they need. They feed 8 to 15 times a day in that first day, so a lot, and they only get a little. And their stomach is the size of this teeny tiny marble. They need to fill it very frequently, and they take that colostrum. Colostrum is so sticky. It's sticky and thick. It does not look like milk, but it is rich with antibodies. It lines your baby's gut. It helps pass the first stool, which is called meconium. And that's what they need to pass before they're allowed to leave the birth center or the hospital. Or if you're having a home birth, your midwife will look at that. And it also, colostrum is what allows babies, to really meet all of the germs and the viruses in their environment, right? We know that colostrum is extremely protective. Breastfeeding, breast milk is extremely protective of babies, getting disease and illness of many, many factors. So you don't need any formula in the first few days unless you do. In the rare case where you're not making enough milk for your baby. And again, depending on where you're giving birth, somebody should be monitoring this and watching pees and poops and all of that. That if we were to actually give routinely in places that just give a bottle routinely in the very beginning, what are you doing when you're giving your bottle to the baby? You're not stimulating your breasts or chest. And remember that I said more milk out is more milk made. So one of the easiest ways to not make enough milk is to do a bottle in the first few days while we're feeling nervous that we're not making enough milk. That is the quickest way to not make enough milk. Every time you do, any of you who do need to give a bottle in the early days, and sometimes clinically you do, or you make that choice too. Boober is all about meeting parents where they are. So this is no judgment at all. I don't care how you feed your baby. I want you to feed your baby how you need to, but I do want you to feel informed that if you do intend or wanted to breastfeed or body feed, as long as at least here at the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 6 months exclusively, in order to get anywhere near meeting that goal, right, we do need to understand how it works. And so if we're giving a bottle of supplement in the very, very early days, what should I be doing? I absolutely should be instructed to express my milk or, use a pump and get in there, or whatever kind of, pump is that I have, or whatever pump, I want to pump my milk out so that I can A, give it to the baby, and B, tell my body that I keep needing to make milk. So anytime you're told to supplement for whatever reason, I would make sure that I'm stimulating myself, right? So I'm using a breast pump, or I'm using my hands to extract that milk while the baby's getting the bottle, okay? So if everything's fine, babies don't need early formula. You really make enough for them. And by suckling as many times as the baby suckles, if left unrestricted, that's what's going to drive your milk supply. So people who have a lot of skin to skin contact early on and who let their baby suckle whenever they show the signs of hunger are ensuring, for the most part, a good milk supply. We build the foundation of milk supply in the early days. So if there's a lot of separation from our baby, we tend to see lower milk supply, but you can combat that by pumping if you aren't with your baby at the time. Okay. If they had to be in the NICU or there was something clinically, going on where we couldn't be together. So I hope that's helpful. All right. So Lavina, back to your question. It covers basically any pump. Oh, okay. So yeah, the LV, so that's a good question. So you're saying that you thought the LV was just a pump for the go. It's used in different ways. I would say that it's used for, it can be used for anybody, for any situation, but it is a bit different, and it does depend on whether it, will it be your primary pump? A lot of people use it. Some people use it as a primary pump. Some people use it as a secondary pump, where they use it when they are on the go, but not only on the go. I would say like when they're at work and need to be working and be on the phone, because it's pretty much silent, whereas other breast pumps are much louder. So that is one of the benefits of it. Some people, it depends on your body, and that's hard to know ahead of time. It has a bit of a different technology of how it works, as compared to, like, you might read differently than a Spectra pump, which may be stronger in its drive. So I'm not sure if it actually does cover, if insurance is covering the LV now. I should know that. I should have asked them. I didn't realize that, if it is. And somebody writes that, how do I know, you got the Medela Pump and Style Max Flow, how do I know what size flanges to buy? So it should have come with a flange. So hopefully you can check that out, Bethany. There, if you go on the Medela site, or for any pump that you buy, LV, Medela, Spectra, they'll have a guide. And this is really bizarre actually, but you're going to measure your nipple. Like this here nipple, right? They're going to give you a diameter measurement. And let me see if I have a flange here. Let me just grab my flange. Like a general, there's two different kinds of flange, right? But this flange, like the nipple should be in it. And in this case, this is actually probably, this flange is probably too big, way too much breast is going to go in there. But here, that looks a little better. See how the nipple is not getting rubbed? So that, but it's got a little air on either side of it. That's an ideal kind of flange fit. Now, if you get on there and the nipple's really rubbing and getting pulled into it, then the flange is too small. So the average person is, usually a 24 millimeter is the size that's average, but some people need smaller and some people need bigger. So you're basically just going to need to, and it does play an impact on how effective the pump works. Absolutely. If it's too small or too big, it will not be as effective. And that's the same for the LV here. Let me just, this is the flange part, which, right. So this goes, where's my boob? Right. This goes in there, and that about fits like so. So that is important. This comes, I believe, in, I think also 3 different sizes. So you can look on anybody's page and see like what's the best measurement fit. And you may need to try it out too. If you're pregnant, I wouldn't try it out extensively before you're 37 weeks, because pumping and stimulation of the breast and nipple is one way that we induce labor. Nipple stimulation creates oxytocin, which creates contractions. So definitely don't do that if you're preterm. After you're in the term window, with permission from your OB or midwife, then perhaps you could do a quick check just to see how it fits. All right. So Stacy, latch is not painful, but I'm under the assumption that my baby has a shallow latch because she's not full after feeding at the breast. I always have to supplement with pup milk or formula. Am I not nursing long enough? She eventually falls asleep while nursing. Stacy, how old is your baby? That would be super helpful to know. So if it's not painful, that's a great sign. That is something we want to look for when we're trying to determine how our latch is going. But if she's not full, she never gets satisfied. You're always supplementing after. This is what I'd recommend trying. And of course, it's going to be hard for like some of you where I'm trying to help you out through text messaging right here. And we're like talking, this is where a consult could be super helpful if I'm not able to help you without seeing what's going on. And we could do, we do virtual consults where we can connect. And some, we have shorter visits where you could just do a relatively short thing if you don't have an extensive question. But essentially, I would do hands-on
nursing with your baby? You said she eventually falls asleep while nursing. How do we keep it going? Try tickling. Try tickling. So tickling feet, tickling armpit, that can keep them stimulated. Hands-on pumping. I'm sorry, hands-on nursing. So I'm going to really get in there. I'm going to find my milk making spots. We have a great class coming up at Boober actually called Manual Milk Expression and learning all about hands-on pumping. And we also do a back to work and pumping class, a full class with presentation. So that's what I would recommend to keep a little more milk going. However, it's not, Stacy, you're giving me symptoms. Let me see if you answered me. How old? 5 weeks old. I sometimes skip a nursing session and just use a bottle of pumped milk. When did you start? Have you been using a bottle for a while? I'm wondering, Stacy, there could be signs of tongue tie, possibly. I understand you're not having pain. Is the baby getting enough? Are you feeling confident that the baby is getting enough? Some babies who get very tired while nursing and they don't get a full feed ever, no matter how long they go, there is the possibility that the tongue, a tongue tie is this, that frenulum, that piece under my tongue is short or thick or tight, and the baby is not able to extend their tongue over the lower lips. And that can cause some issues because the tongue is what the tongue, if you imagine this is the tongue is like, it's doing these undulations and these waves and compression like motions, which are helping drive milk supply and helping the baby get what they need. So that's possible. Not using a bottle of pump milk since the first week. So you felt like you always felt like you had to pump a little extra, like she wasn't getting enough. I mean, it's possible. And have you seen a lactation consultant at all, Stacy, or did they say anything? Has anybody looked at the baby's tongue at all? Your pediatrician or in the hospital? And I'm not saying at all, I cannot diagnose, I can't see you. It's just that's one of the questions around, if babies really take a very long time to feed and never feel sated, that's one thing where we start to question. We go, oh, well, what's causing that? So, okay, doctor said possible mild tongue tie. Yeah, so a couple of things with tongue tie. If it's mild, it's possible you could just try body work first. The lactation consultants at Boober, like I would definitely consider come have a visit with somebody who specializes in the function of the tongue and lactation. Pediatricians don't necessarily have the specialty in lactation. Very few do. That's why they refer out usually to lactation consultants. And then the lactation consultant can look at the function and look at how much milk is being taken. If you do an in-person visit, what they would do is they will weigh the baby on a very sensitive scale. You'll nurse, weigh the baby again, and they can tell how much transfer is happening over how much time. So people whose feeds are exceptionally long and whose babies don't get that much, or they get enough, but through exceptionally long time, and they're not super efficient, there sometimes is that mild tongue tie. So a lot of lactation consultants recommend doing working with sorry, I'm just forgetting the word, speech language pathologist, SLP, or a PT, physical therapist who specializes in newborns, or a craniosacral therapist who specializes in newborns, or a chiropractic specialist who specializes in newborns. So there's a bunch of different people who do work with this. And sometimes they just do the body work. All of a sudden, if it's the mildest tongue tie that doesn't really cause a functional problem, they can release their jaw, do some physical work, can make a huge difference in optimizing efficiency. If the problem continues on, and sometimes after 5 or 6 weeks, if the milk supply really starts going down, then definitely do reach out, because tongue tie doesn't always affect milk production until around 6 weeks, when we shift from a hormonal standpoint of milk making, and then we shift into a physical milk making. So at around 5 or 6 weeks, the system actually does shift, and it will be based on how the baby drives the milk production and less on the hormones. So do watch for that. Okay. If that does happen, like definitely reach out. And then a lactation consultant will work with you on latch positioning assessment. And then they'll refer you to either an ENT who specializes in babies, or a pediatric dentist who specializes
in case you do need to have that tie clipped or lasered, if that's something after, extensive thought and consultation, you decide would be something that would be beneficial to you. And a lot of people do find it to be profoundly, very changing in terms of their nursing experience. And some people don't. There's a whole lot of aftercare you have to do as well. Not always, but sometimes maybe 10% of babies just are fixed immediately, but it is a process. Okay. So, check in. Definitely feel free to come visit us. We'd be, happy to support you. Or if there's somebody that your doctor works with, I will just drop this for you guys, lactation support, in case anybody does need a lactation consultant. We will follow up with some resources after this as well. All right, let me back up and see more questions here, and then I'll come over to my question box as well. Okay, so my baby was 4 weeks early and is finally latching on consistently. Congrats, Elise. That's challenging for sure, right? Because the latch, often when a baby comes a bit earlier, 36 weeks even, although only 4 weeks early, the baby's full suck isn't developed until around 37 or a little bit more weeks. She spends about 10 to 15 minutes on one breast for feeding. How do I know she's getting enough? So how old is she now, Elise? So let me just check into 2 weeks tomorrow. Okay. Okay. So she should be peeing at least 6 times per day, typically on average, and pooping. Do you see at least 4 yellow bowel movements a day? I guess that's where I do want to know, like, what you're experiencing. So that's one thing, what's coming out. Have you been to the pediatrician? How have they said weight gain is? That would be another thing. So we're looking at weight gain, and we're looking at, how much is coming out. That's the main way you can know that they're getting enough. Okay. Yeah. So if she's peeing and pooping that much, if you're hitting those minimums, people feel pretty confident. And have you had a weight check recently with your doctor? If you're going to in-person, like, that's a great, if you're feeling unsure, you could always ask your pediatrician. We've been to the ped and she's lost some weight, but she's slowly gaining it back. Okay. They lose a little weight in the very beginning on the first couple of days. That is normal. So they should, they can lose up to 10% of their birth weight. Not sure where your weight loss was, but as long as your pediatrician feels confident and you're seeing those diapers, like, you're going back to tomorrow for another check-in. Great. So if the weight is not what you'd like to see tomorrow, if it is, good, you're fine. If it's not, if the weight is a little under, that's where a lactation consultant can be very helpful to you. Like, we shouldn't wait too long on that, because if there are milk supply issues, like, maybe you're just not in the ideal latch position, or maybe something's going on with your baby's mouth, or the baby's still strengthening because the baby was born a little bit early. They're still strengthening and growing and developing, and that you might be a person who needs to kind of add on a little bit of pumping, possibly, and a little supplementing for now, but in the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks, your baby will get stronger and stronger and get more efficient. But that could be really supported by seeing a lactation consultant for sure. All right. So let's see. Currently triple feeding and supplementing with formula. Okay. At least. I'm sorry, I missed that second part. I didn't realize that was you as well. So just to add to that, you're saying, how do I know she's getting enough? We eventually want to remove formula from the equation. What's the best advice for transitioning? Okay, so a slow transition is the best advice. We do not want to cut off cold turkey on formula, because we would definitely not want you to get into a situation where all of a sudden you're like not making enough, right? So you could start, if you want to transition off, I would start pumping a little bit, maybe use your pump and try to get, an additional ounce out of your pump, and then you can replace 1 ounce of breast milk for 1 ounce of formula, right? And then if you can, start to slowly transition. You can also, this is another place where you could work with a lactation consultant, because if you're comfortable with in-person care, because they could then tell you exactly, if you don't know what the baby's transferring, that's very hard. Or you could go to your pediatrician, if they'll do this for you, and do what's called a weighted feed, so that you can really get a sense of, like, how much does my baby take in? If you know that, then you can know the math, right? So that makes some sense. I'm going to go over to the question box for a minute. How long does it take to truly establish a milk supply when exclusively pumping? Can you give me a general idea of how much milk on average is normal for pumping in the first few weeks? See lots of people on social media with stashes of pumped milk. Yeah, no. Social media. What do I have to say about social media? Besides, I'm like, hey, follow us on at Get Boober, and then take everything you see with a grain of salt from everybody. I mean, we're trying to be very educational in our posts and our reshares. And you may see somebody with a big stash, but remember how social media is, of course, somebody's on a beautiful island all the time too. So thank you for sharing that, because social media can make us feel woefully inadequate. If you're exclusively pumping, do you want to give me a sense, anonymous, how old is your baby? How long have you been pumping for? You know, you should be producing, babies are going to take, maybe they'll take, 24, a little less ounces. It depends on actually how old your baby is. So let me see, but a general idea of how much milk on average is normal. I mean, babies on 1.5 to 3 ounces per pump, if you're exclusively pumping, let me see if you're giving me comments over here. Yeah. So that's something I would say is you should not have some crazy stash unless you're an overproducer. And some people are overproducers naturally. It's actually very hard to be an overproducer for some people. Some people have pumped so much, they're over pumping. They're pumping so frequently. And they're really in a high level of production. So do not worry. All you need is enough for your baby. Okay. So would I recommend expressing colostrum before giving birth? I generally would not, unless you are gestationally diabetic. If you're somebody who has gestational diabetes, then you could farm or harvest or collect a little bit of it because it's on the end of your bra at the end of the day. Some people at the end of the last few weeks of pregnancy, you'll see a little crusty there. You'll see a little bit, you can collect a little bit of it, squeeze a little if you want, and then save that. And that way you can get that right into your baby after, because people who have gestational diabetes, they want your baby they want to avoid a blood sugar drop, right? And so they want to get that milk into your baby real quick. And so their tendency is, let me just give you a little bit of formula. But if you have your own colostrum, which is built with your antibodies in your world, right, then you can give that to the baby instead right away, because not all babies want to nurse the second they're born. It can sometimes take 25 minutes or an hour for them to do the crawl, or even just to show an interest at all. And so in that case, we don't want to have that blood sugar drop. Otherwise, only if you're interested, you could certainly farm a little bit at the end, but there's no need to really. I'd love to know more about when and how to start pumping if you're also planning to breastfeed normally. Sure. So if you're planning to breastfeed or body feed exclusively, we tend to say hold off on pumping. You don't want to pump until after initial lactation. I didn't quite say that right. Let me start again. I'm like, wait, I was reading something. You don't want to start to pump. So if you want to start pumping and you're planning to breastfeed or body feed exclusively, hold off on pumping until breastfeeding is well established. That means for most people, average 2 to 4 weeks. The goal is learn how to nurse, make sure it's not hurting you, make sure the baby's peeing and pooping enough. They have a very wide open mouth. They have that ideal latch, right? And then you can pump once a day and have your partner or your postpartum doula, give that milk to the baby at one feed where you don't have to then feed. So maybe that would be in the middle of the night. So that's really what I would say is nobody should be pumping in the beginning at all, unless you're separated from your baby or you're exclusively pumping or you're not making enough milk, something going on and you're told that the baby needs more. And so you need to pump to get more out of your boob than what your baby's able to drive. Does that make sense? All right. And somebody says, would you say formula can be very mature for newborns? I think I know what you're saying. I would say yes. Formula in general is not designed the same way colostrum would be. So like they haven't come up with a formula that would be equal to colostrum. So if you are using formula very, very early on, it should be in much smaller amounts. It's not 1.5 ounces. Like, remember we said, you're going to get 1 to 2 tablespoons in a total day. So very, very small amounts. And we do know that formula, especially in a premature baby, can be more dangerous
So in NICUs, there's some NICUs that, require having donor breast milk there, because that can prevent something called NEC. So that is something to consider. Small amounts, if you do need, of course, you need to feed your baby, right? So if you're not able to or don't want to put baby to breast, then your next options are either donor breast milk or formula, and just being mindful of the amounts that you use in the very beginning. So somebody writes, for exclusive pumping, baby is 5 weeks tomorrow, taking about 25 to 28 ounces a day. Oh, Rebecca, were you answering a question of mine before and pumping half of that? Did I answer that? I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I think, I can't remember because I'm looking for names. So you said for exclusive pumping, baby is 5 weeks tomorrow, taking about 25 to 28 ounces a day, pumping about half of that and supplementing with formula. And that's just a statement. So was there more of the question to add to that? I probably talked to you before and am not quite remembering. So I just want to make sure, Rebecca, if you could add on to that a little bit, what you are telling me, and I will answer another question and then I'll come back to you. Okay. So if going back to work after 3 months, when should we start to bottle feed so baby can get used to that? Great question. Bottle feeding ideal time to introduce is somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks, I would say. With the passing 8 weeks becomes very hard to introduce a bottle, and they tend to not want it at all. So if you're going to introduce a bottle, I would definitely try, I like to shoot for the 4 to 6 weeks is a really kind of good time to try and do that. And then I would keep that up, once a day or every other day or something, so that the baby's still used to it. And in terms of going back to work, and like I said, we do a full back to work class. Let me actually get you guys the link to, I don't think I gave you the link for all of our classes yet. But here are we have a whole bunch of lactation and pumping classes and lots of things for pregnant people as well to drop into, which you can either take while pregnant or when you have a baby. We also have that pumping and back to work class and another class like what I'm doing right now with a lactation specialist as well. And then for pregnant people, of course, all sorts of childbirth education, pain coping drop-in classes for labor, things like that. So just want to let you know about that class because that could be helpful for you. In terms of going back to work, about a month or so before you go back to work is when you do want to start building your supply. So that's a good time to start pumping, about a month before, to kind of start once a day extra on top of your regular nursing schedule and see if you get a little extra out and see if you can build a little bit. The other thing you can do with I have the LV catch back there, which looks a little bit like this, but is not the pump. I just realized I don't have it open, so I won't open it right now. But the LV catch could be used. You just simply stick that in your bra, right? When you're nursing on the other side, if you're somebody who leaks a lot, it catches all the extra milk. And so that's a really great product. It's pretty new. The Catch and the Curve are quite new. Those are great to catch your milk. And then you could start storing a bit of a stash without doing any work. Does that make sense? So those of you who are leaking a lot. Okay, so hi, sorry if you said this already, but what is typical for pees and poops for an 11-day-old? 11-day-old should be around 6 pees per day for 24 hours and at least 4 yellow bowel movements per day, but some babies will do a little less than that and some will do a lot more. So you're also looking for signs of that when babies, in addition to that, babies should be waking up with good eye contact and strength in their body, and not, sleeping excessively like 5, 6, and 7 hours, things like that. They should be sleeping generally 1 to 3 hours. Maybe you get 1 4 or 5 hour stretch per 24 hours. That's okay. So let's see. Would you recommend feeding your baby based on the baby's needs, ask, or develop a schedule from the beginning, say every 3 hours? Definitely no schedule in the very beginning. And the reason for this is if you want to build a full milk supply, it's all about on-demand feeding. It's following your baby's lead, and your baby will lead you into the proper supply amount. If you restrict, every 3 hours is actually rather a big distance for a brand new baby. And so if you restrict to that, you may not make enough milk for your baby. There was the old days where we told people never feed more often than 3 hours. Not the old days when everybody just nursed whenever. But, you know, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we were really telling, at least in this country, telling people not to nurse. And then we came up with all sorts of strange rules, like never feed more often than 3 hours. So you'll still hear that for some people, but that for a lot of people will not make a full milk supply. All right. When you start pumping, how much milk should be stored to be safe? I'm not sure what you mean to be safe as much as, I'm thinking like for what condition, Brooke? Like when you start pumping, how much milk should be stored? Like in general, or if you're going out, it really does depend on your situation, right? So if you're going out and you're going to miss one feed, you should have enough for a full feed, and it depends how old your baby is. But let's say if they're more than, you know, if they're like in the 6 week and up, you know, I would try to have at least 3 ounces probably there, but 3 to 5 ounces, you know, for one feed, which is a lot for a little baby. So I'm just shooting above. That would be a good thing to have in general. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like, so I was with my, you know, I own my own company. I'm working all the time. When I had my baby, like I only had to go out to teach. Louise teach in person for a few hours, right? So I would need to leave enough for one bottle. And otherwise I pretty much was working from home all the time and could be with my baby. I had that privilege. And so I didn't have to ever have a big supply. But those of you who are going back to work and out of the home, where you're going to be gone all day, you need to have enough, of course, for how many times they would have a bottle, which would have been how many times they would have fed from you. So that's where our pumping class comes in. We do a lot of this math for you. And you can also book a one-on-one session with a lactation professional when you're trying to get ready to go back to work. We have some great people who do back to work sessions, or, you know, who can just really help you with pumping and figuring out your particular back to work scenario. Oh, good. Okay, great. So can you show the LV curve or catch? Yes. Is it the same as the Haka? It's the same principle. So this is the LV curve. Yes, this is not the LV curve. So the LV curve, you see this like kind of has this kind of air space at the top, but you basically are putting your nipple in through there. And then what you're doing is you're pressing like this. If you know, you can also just press every now and then what it does is it creates a little bit of suction, and then it draws the milk out. So how it's different than the Haka, I actually don't have my Haka here in front of me, but the Haka hangs, you know, it's much longer. You wouldn't have your shirt on over it. Let's put it that way. This you can actually have in your shirt, and then I can just press a little bit, right? I can have that in my bra. So it's a little different in that regard. Whereas the Haka is going to kind of attach to your boob. It sort of hangs off, and you can squeeze it every now and then, or you can just use it to hold. And the catch almost looks like this, but it's not designed to have the suction. It just kind of fits in your bra and collects milk. So the catch is a milk collector, and the curve is the pump, which has the suction. And the Haka is more of, it does do both. You can just hold it there and catch, or you can kind of squeeze it to create suction. So it's a different design. Like I'd say the Haka is not as sleek in design in terms of like, this can just be in your bra. So people, you know, depends. I mean, you'll hear different things. Again, that's the hard thing with pumps, to really like, you won't know fully which is going to be the most ideal for you sometimes, unfortunately, until you try it, because everybody's boobs are a different shape, and, you know, and our bodies work a little bit differently. In the first few days when the baby is born, is the amount of milk colostrum only teaspoon level? Yeah, well, 1 to 2 tablespoons in the first 24 hours. Therefore, does the breastfeeding session those first few days last only a few minutes? You know, it's a good question. Sometimes you'll have a very little, but the baby's actually getting used to the work of nursing too. And because they can't hold very much, they are hungry really frequently. So I would say the nursing sessions in the very beginning are anywhere from 5 minutes long to 40 minutes long, you know, whereas when you get more into normal lactation, like let's say by day 3 or so, where the milk has come in, then it kind of changes a little bit. It gets much more efficient. Actually, they get faster, especially as their mouth grows. So I'm going to give you guys this. We have a full complete lactation preparation class, which is with me with a full, all sorts of visuals, etc. So that is the complete lactation class. If you are interested, we also have another, kind of Q&A class, which is, let me give you the pumping 101 and back to work class as well, which is a great class. I think we're doing one of these next week. And let me also, I want to give you guys the resource page at Boober. We have free ebooks here, which are very useful. You might find helpful. There's some lactation, back to work books, things like that. We're giving you lots of links. All right. Okay, let me see if I have any last questions, because I know we're, somebody asked, can you mix formula and breast milk in the same bottle? You can if it's right at the same time, but remember that if somebody is, if the baby doesn't finish the bottle, right? They take their bottle, they take a little, and you really want to be mindful that like when the baby seems done, if they're trying to pull away, you pull the bottle up. If they don't take more of it, then you have to throw it out. And so you don't want to waste breast milk, right? And if they don't finish what you poured in there. So most people do tend to use breast milk first because they want to get more breast milk into the baby, and then they follow it with formula if the baby needs more. Does that make sense? Unless you know your exact amount. And once you know your exact amount that you're doing, once you figured out your baby and exactly what they need, that they take the whole thing and you won't be wasting any breast milk, then you could blend them. All right. All right. So, feel free, let me give you our email. If you have any other emails, we will send you guys an email. I also want to let you know if anybody is looking for a birth doula right now, even if you're not sure, virtual or in person, we're having a special for connecting with birth doulas. And if you, decide to book a birth doula in person or virtually, let me just give the birth doula link. You can fill out the form. We'll connect back with you. We'll connect you to different people to interview. We are offering a $45 credit on other classes after you book a birth doula with us. So, and we'll also send you a little welcome code probably tomorrow when you get an email from us. I want to thank Elvie for hosting us today. And, again, you definitely check them out because that does allow the being wireless. People really do love that, being able to talk to your phone, catches how much milk, and can really make it possible for you, especially if you have a toddler. Also, it can be really great, or while you're on the go. And back to the person who asked that question about does it work, as primary. Again, it really does depend on each person because it is a bit different. So not all people find it as strong. And a lot of people, but it does work for a lot of people. So it's like really about, it's like, you've got to figure it out, and you may end up needing two different ones. Some people do have two different pumps for different locations and for what they do, if they can figure that out. But thankfully insurance is covering usually at least one of the pumps. And remember that when you are pumping, one last tip for pumping, hands-on pumping, using your hands while you, pump, like if it's in, and then I am actually, this would be in my bra, right? I guess I should do that, right? It's in there. I can just touch my breast to kind of give a little extra massage, which helps a little bit more of the milk flow. So people that use hands-on pumping actually need to spend less time pumping, especially for those of you who are exclusive pumpers. All right. It was great to meet all of you. Oh, can you be added to the birth doula directory? If you're somebody who's looking to be, yeah, you're welcome, Nicole. Thank you for coming out. I hope this was helpful. And if you enjoyed this class, it would be super helpful for us. Actually, I forgot to ask you guys if you guys want any other classes. Super helpful to hear what other things are of interest to you. Yeah, you're welcome. And if you enjoyed this, please let your midwife or doctor know, or pediatrician know about Boober. We are really here to be a great resource for you. I hope lots of other free classes you will drop by or come to some of our pain coping classes, infant CPR and safety. I'd love to have you
at all of them. And for the person who's interested in joining, let me just give you the join Boober link. I'm going to give you this join Boober for Rare Enterprise. If you could join and fill out that form, and then we will be in touch with you to connect. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. Looking forward to meeting you. And thanks everybody. Looks like a lot of you are interested in CPR and sleep, and we have great classes on that. I'm teaching preparation for postpartum tomorrow, so come check that out. Great newborn care class coming up. And yeah, I'm really excited to have the pelvic floor therapy. We're going to be doing some great classes coming up on that as well. So I'm going to take care. Enjoy the rest of, what day is it? This Sunday. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you.